Addiction never affects just the addict. It affects all of us. Recovering from addiction and alcoholism is also a life-changing battle for families dealing with a loved one's addiction. Numerous programs support addicts as they reclaim their lives, while their families face their own challenges without the same guidance. You're listening to Voices in Courage with KL Wells, where we transform the lives of the families and loved ones of addicts and alcoholics from surviving to thriving in the midst of chaos. Tune in as we highlight vulnerable stories of families who have addicted relatives and friends and learn how they have dealt with the challenges of isolation, desperation, and shame. If you are seeking ways to live your best life, then we welcome you into this safe space. Be a part of change today with your host, KL Wells.
Hi, this is Voices in Courage with KL Wells, and we are just a little bit over a year out from having interviewed and talked to Jeannie Erickson. And so I'm thrilled to have her back because a lot's happened in the last year, and she left us with great wisdom, which was secrets keep us sick. And so I want to say thank you for being here.
Welcome.
Yeah. And then if you can give us a little bit of an update in terms of kind of what's happened in the last year, that'd be great. And then we're just going to have a conversation.
Wonderful. Well, so looking back in September 30th, my son was released from prison. Mm-hmm. He was incarcerated for over 3 years. Mm-hmm. It was pretty awkward. It was kind of tough to see him in that state. He looked good. He was a little bit overwhelmed, I think, with what's changed in the world in the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. In prison, they COVID affected him there too. But right. What was interesting to me is how he acted like it was just another day after being in prison for so long. And I did a lot of work while he was in prison on how to manage my own life and take care of me. That was really my focus. It was really important for me to take note and feel the feelings and make sure that I was doing the best I could do with my self-care. Yeah. Because whether he's healthy or whether he's in his addiction or whatever, it's his side of the street. He's my child. I'll love him until the day I die, but I can't let that affect me on a daily basis. It can't cripple my decision-making. And so we started our journey. And
so Jeannie, can you just speak a little bit more about this? Because I think this is just mission critical for parents and those who love others that are dealing with the disease, is to do our work and figure out what our work is, and then the self-care component. And so as you worked on yourself in the midst of your son's incarceration, what would you kind of identify as some pivotal things that shifted for you that you took a hold of and now embrace in your own self-care?
Great question. I would think that continuing to deepen my relationship with my higher power, being religious and being spiritual are two very distinct and different things. And it's different for everybody. So for me, it was working my Al-Anon program, which is huge. I have a great fellowship and an extended family in Al-Anon. One of the things that is helpful in my walk is to participate, to be involved, to do my prayers and meditation every day. I stay connected with my Al-Anon fellows, and what that means is going to meetings, reading the literature, because my definition of working that program is without it, I really get distracted pretty quickly on how I can rescue someone else and what can I do and how come they can't see what they're doing to the world, to me, and so that's really a big part of it for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a huge distinction to know that, number one, community matters. And whether it's Al-Anon or some other community,
Right.
it is mission critical for our health, mental health and wellness. And then the other piece is the Al-Anon book. But if you're not in Al-Anon, there are plenty of books out there. We have a resource guide on our website for you to kind of continue to steep yourself in. I know for me personally, that's been super important, is making sure that I am kind of the guard of what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, who I'm listening to, that keeps me centered and healthy and all the things that you just spoke to. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm a seeker. I love information. I love to hear other people's stories. I have dear friends that share literature and experiences, and it just makes a difference. I think that to share with someone that might be in the throes of just a traumatic event is you're not alone. And there are many folks that are willing to support, care, listen, and be there. And when we keep it all up here, then it helps to just really fester that worry. And so.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think still embedded in the nature of this disease, there are just a lot of people that are in the shadows,
right?
Keeping silent. And my hope is that through the people that I get to interview on this podcast and the work that we do, that we'll begin to create these cracks in the dam of silence.
I would agree wholeheartedly. Absolutely. And is it fear? I don't know. Is it shame? I mean, there's a myriad of labels you can put on it why people go inside rather than to try to reach out for help and support. But there, as you said, there's lots of resources, there's lots of opportunity. And it's crucial for my own survival that I continue to walk that path.
Right. And so how did you prepare yourself for your son's coming out of jail or prison?
Great question.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I have a great partner, and he and I did a lot of pre-work, kind of like getting ready for doing a major exam. And we had conversations about what that would look like. And we had discussions about what we did in the past that weren't successful. We did the rescuer, we did the, all the money in the world can't help an addict. It's just, you're just fueling the fire. And so we had made a conscious decision about, we need to continue with whatever our plans are. We're not going to change our focus on how we live our best life. He got out of prison, and then 9 days later we left for an adventure. And it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to execute it.
Right. So say a little bit more about the internal journey for you in terms of executing it.
Right. It was scary because my past behavior was, gosh, I need to be here. I need to be accessible. Who's going to drive him here? Who's going to drive him there? And, fortunately in Lane County, we have some tremendous programs. My son, by direction of the courts, went directly into sponsors. So he had a meal with me, and I drove him straight away to where his residence was going to be. And I dropped him off. And while we were talking, I told him about this journey, and I didn't make apologies for it. I just said, hey, we got this going on. I'm so excited for you. I support you. And you've got all the resources you need to be successful. So, the day that we left, my husband and I, was pretty scary because, it's that fear of the unknown. It's all the things that we have no control over, truly.
Yeah.
And to be willing to let it go and know that even if I was home, I probably couldn't change the course of what was about to happen.
Right.
And so, and kind of the cool part, because I was different, is when I returned from that journey, my son, through his good work, actually was honest for the first time. And he said, when you told me you were leaving, I was terrified because you were my person. But it proved to me that sometimes with our best intentions, we're getting in the way of someone else's recovery. He needed to stand on his own 2 feet. He needed to find his people. He needed to do the work or not. But it couldn't be contingent upon me.
Right. So how did you deal with the fear?
Talked a lot about it.
Great.
Absolutely. I didn't hold it in because that's a scary place for me.
Yeah. So it takes tremendous courage to do what you did.
Sure.
So I want to acknowledge that. And did you have a sense of your own power coming back to you?
What do you mean?
Well, because it's a courageous act, and it sounds like pretty much a first-time act. He's coming out of prison, and 9 days later, you and your husband are off on an adventure. And so you changed the dance, you changed the pattern.
Right.
And when we do those things, there's a little wonkiness that can kind of go along with that, along with, oh my God, here we go. So that's why I'm asking you the question.
Yeah, I think, my actions validated my decision that I had made the right choice, if that makes sense. And we had a great time on our adventure. My husband is my person, and we are very open about everything that affects especially the matters of the heart.
Great.
So that's important. And, we love our children with all our heart, but we can't live their lives for them. So.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you are so fortunate that you have a person that you can, talk to about and share, as you say, matters of the heart. And so again, I'm encouraging our audience, if you're listening to this, if you don't have a person, please go about the journey of finding someone that you're able to feel safe with psychologically and emotionally, and be able to talk through, whether it's a counselor or whether it's a friend or a new friend through Al-Anon or another group or whatever. But I am a big believer in being able to share our own humanity in the midst of these kinds of journeys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's true. Sometimes other people's experience, strength, and hope that gives me promise, and that reminds me I'm on the right path.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many podcast interviews we've had where they've said 1, 2, 3 things, and I'm like, oh, just at the right moment.
Right.
Just at the right moment. My experience is that just being on this journey and being aware that you're always kind of, your spidey antenna is out for the right message, the right reading, the right podcast, or to give you that next step of hope, that next step of, yes, I'm on the right path.
Absolutely. And it's, you can't do it alone. I mean, I really believe that sense of community, and, digging deep, trying to understand the disease better, doing the research, getting information about how drugs affect people, paying attention to what's going on in our community. I mean, unfortunately, it's a big war out there. There's drugs that are now polluted and literally killing people much quicker than they used to, because and so we just have to be wary of that. We have to arm ourselves with our tools that we have in walking the walk, and making sure that we are open to listen to other people. I'm never too busy not to talk with someone about that story, because I think that's the thing that really kind of has to, the shell has to get broken open, so people know you are not alone in this journey.
Right. Yes. And I think so much of this disease is focused on the people that are in the midst of the disease.
Right.
And so those of us who love people, we have our own recovery that we're navigating, which that's how I interpret what you've said in terms of doing your work and all of those things. I mean, I know my story that I tell is that I would never have done this level of personal development work, emotional work, spiritual work, if it hadn't been for Sam.
Right.
And me getting just cracked wide open. And I'm like, okay, here we are. So game on.
It's no different whether you're the addict or you're the loved one. We all need help in navigating this horrible disease. So it's crucial. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Well, do you? I feel like a better human. A more compassionate, kind, loving human on the other side of some of this. And I'm still, evolving as far as that's concerned. I just think I'm a better person because of all of this.
Absolutely. It's kind of like doing your part in humanity, because without it, I would be that person looking for my child, or trying to find help for my child, or trying to, be the quarterback to make this work. And I can be a spectator. I mean, what I mean by that is to, show up, participate, be available, but I'm not running the plays. So.
Yeah, I think that is a huge opportunity for growth for a lot of parents in particular, and moms in particular, is to realize that, particularly when we have adult children dealing with the disease, is this is their journey to navigate.
I agree.
In some respects, it's redefining how we think about ourselves as a parent.
Right. Well, and early on, I mean, we were the caretakers. We were the ones that, fed them and clothed them and did all the things. And I can even remember, in my childhood and growing up, my parents' greatest desire was to provide me with the tools and resources to go out and be an adult that participates in life, not to live under their roof, not to follow their lead, but to just flourish, have an amazing life. And that's what I'm trying to do. So.
Awesome. Say more about what's happened in the last year since he was released and you came back from your trip.
Right. It's been a wonderful journey to be actually a spectator and see all the steps and strides and accomplishments that our son has done. And it's all on him. It's not, well, I helped him do this, or I did that, or it all is him. So I mean, I just celebrate in his accomplishments. I celebrate his successes. He's been working since he was 2 weeks out of prison, and he's on fire. He's got a sponsor. He's working a staunch program. He's doing service work. He's living in a sober living house. Again, I just want to give a shout out because I live in Lane County. I don't know what other counties are like, but we have so many resources. You just got to ask.
Right.
I mean, from having a shelter to food to clothing to counseling to it's all there. Solid AA program, solid NA program, and I'm just it's wonderful to sit back and watch the movie of my son as a 38-year-old man living his best life. And no, all I get is this moment right now today. It's no different than any other disease. It could scoop him up in an instant. I pray it doesn't, but I just help celebrate his success. Enabling is not the answer. And having them live with you is not the answer.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, two things that you said. First was just ask for help, which for a lot of people is a huge lift. Right. I mean, I know I'm going to be having a conversation with a woman on next Sunday, who I have been talking to her stepfather for 2 years now, to encourage her to have this conversation.
Right.
And my hope is that this is the beginning of her having more conversations and coming out of the shadows and stopping the silence that she's been putting herself in a way that doesn't serve. And so the asking for help part, whoever's listening to this, please, because the resources are out there, whether they're virtual or whether they are absolutely in your community. And there are plenty of people at this point. 1 in 3 families is dealing with this. Right. So you can look on the right or you can look on the left, and one of you is going to be dealing with this. So you're in great company, unfortunately. And we know that as we are open and vocal about this out in our community, that every time you tell a story, you have people coming up to you and say, oh, my son passed away, or my daughter passed away, or they're in rehab, or they're, the stories are everywhere.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So then the other thing too, Jeannie, is to be able to focus more on the successes and the things that are going well, and beginning, it dampening and shrinking the notion that, which we all live with in terms of recovery, is it could change in a heartbeat.
That's true. Absolutely. And again, I think part of that, and it's not the way I was brought up to keep the focus on myself, but that's the only thing I truly have control over is how I manage my life. Do I want joy and happiness? Do I want serenity? Do I want relationships? And I mean, it's such an amazing experience. I never dreamed that any of this would happen, but it did. It's no different that if you are injured and you have reconstructive surgery and you have to learn how to live your life either the best of your ability with what you've got, or you can sit there and do the woe is me and just make your world small and I don't want to do that. So
yeah, and it's a choice and a decision, and then execution, one step at a time.
Right, exactly. And Al, we say one day at a time. So don't make it big. Just this minute, just right now. It's okay.
Right. And giving yourself permission, I've talked about this before, is that I was like, okay, so when my son pops out the other side, who do I want him to see. And I wanted him to see happy, healthy, whole, living my best life, joyful, thriving in the life that I've created. And so I think what you spoke to is being a model of that for our children, no matter what age they are, I think is an extraordinary thing.
I would agree. Absolutely. And again, friends and family. I mean, if they witness that it's not a facade, it's just who you are, your true authentic self, it makes a difference. And there's no reason. It's like when you sit in a room, you go, wow, I really want what she's got. How do I get that?
Right.
I think we have a responsibility also for our world, for our community, because this disease is not going anywhere. And that's tragic. But are we doing our part? Are we doing what we can do?
Right. Exactly. And I think I asked you this the last time, but I want to ask you this time because you're a year different.
Right.
Than when we talked before. What would you identify now as kind of the major gifts and lessons embedded in your journey for you?
Well, I kind of touched on it a little bit. Clarity around what is helping someone and what is enabling. Keeping track on what's truly my part in any relationship.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, it's pretty easy to get caught up in judgment and, opinions, and I'm no judge and jury. It's not my role. I don't wear that hat.
Right.
Just have an open heart and open mind to, the worst of the worst can happen. But that's not what it's a conscious decision. It's a choice that I wake up every day with gratitude. I'm pretty solid and clear on if I have wronged someone, I want to make an amends. I don't want to have any dirty laundry at the end of the day.
Right.
It's amazing to actually believe that all I get to do is my part. And if someone I've wronged doesn't want to accept my apology or whatever it is, that's on them. I just need to do my part of the dance. And so,
and so I want to exemplify for everybody is what Jeannie is really exemplifying for us right now is this notion of courageous authenticity and integrity in being truly who you are and advancing that best version of who you are and releasing others to theirs.
Absolutely. I am blessed beyond belief. I have been gifted with friends of every race, religion, sexual orientation. I mean, the minute that I surrendered judgment, truly, it's such a gift. I have so many people that are teaching me and opening my eyes to whatever walk of life they've chosen. And it's great. I mean, they just welcome me with a hug and tell me about what's going on. And I mean, boy, that wasn't the way I was brought up.
But I don't know that many of us were.
It would have really held me back. It would have limited my ability to appreciate others and where they are right now. I just feel so fortunate.
Yeah,
I'm the lucky one.
And the power of suspending and eliminating that judge that we all have in our heads. We're either judging ourselves or we're judging others, but to give it less and less and less power and authority is, I think, a part of the human journey.
Absolutely. I mean, just real quick, here's a couple simple examples. Years ago, you'd go to the Ducks basketball games or whatever, and you see all these cute little cheerleaders in their little itty bitty dresses. And it's really easy to sometimes to just kind of form your own opinion of negativism about what it is until you sit right next to somebody and they go, that's somebody's daughter.
Right.
To humanize it. And the same thing for the people on the street and the homeless. And that's someone's husband, wife, brother, sister, mother, father, child.
Right.
And there's no need to be mean to them or look down on them.
Yeah.
They're having some tough time.
Yeah.
Now, it is truly up to them on how they choose to work it. But it's not, I'm not their judge.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. I can be kind to them.
Right. Right. Well, we've learned so much in the decades since we grew up about trauma and brain science. And I think for me, that was just so illuminating, was really for the vast majority of people, it's trauma-based.
Right.
And then it's brain science. Their brains have been compromised. And so that understanding completely reoriented me in so many ways. There was kind of a reverberation through every domino. And that's just one thing.
Right. Yeah.
So, but everybody who's on the street at this point that is homeless, most of them it's trauma issues. And then their brains have been compromised, and somebody somewhere loves them or has loved them along the way.
Absolutely.
And some have given up on them.
Either given up or surrendered.
There's two things I'm thinking about. One is to love as deeply as what we're talking about takes courage, and it takes a knowing of who you are. And to be able to be in the fire of this disease while loving that deeply, that is a very evolved way to be, I think.
I would agree. Absolutely. And you definitely need to have the tools in your toolbox to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so what I would say is that's one of the bigger things too, is we can actually develop the tools. We can actually develop the skill sets from an emotional, mental, spiritual perspective to be able to stand in authenticity that way. Whereas we used to think, that's just the way it is.
Right. Yeah. We'd either give up or just be in acceptance.
Right. Exactly. So then the other piece is some people are just like, I can't take it anymore. They're not doing it the way I need them to do it. I'm watching them suffer. That's too hard on me. I can't make them. I can't control them. I don't have agency over this person to change the potential outcome. And that's when I think quite a few people just say, I'm done.
Right.
And they're right at the doorway of their own work.
Yeah. They have a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would agree.
So any other lessons that you would want to point out before we kind of close up?
I guess what I would suggest is one thing that's helpful, especially when we get distracted with our own thinking, is to truly sit down, pen and paper, and just write 5 things that you're grateful about today. Just focus on that. Focus on the positive. Whatever it is, big or small, doesn't matter.
I'm a wholehearted believer in that. I believe that we tend to focus on what's going wrong or what's bad, and flipping it to enlarging the picture and the viewpoint of really all the blessings and gifts and all the things that we are so blessed. It's almost ridiculous. And to not give that the recognition that it deserves.
Right. We take it for granted. I would agree.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate your willingness to, just share these different phases of this journey for you. because it's ever changing, and we're ever changing. And so, who the audience is listening to today is different than the person that was a year ago.
Absolutely. Yep. One day, 1 minute at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, maybe a year from now, we'll do this again.
Maybe we will.
So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely my honor. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, you have a great trip that you're getting ready for, and we'll see you on the other side.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in this episode. We hope this discussion gives you the empowerment you need during these challenging times. Remember, there is always light after darkness. For more inspiring conversations like this one, subscribe to the show at voicesencourage.com/podcast. We encourage you to share with your friends and family going through similar situations so we can continue to build a strong community of hope and possibility. Start your life-changing journey today. Join our community at voicesencourage.com.